Now we're going to move to the Q&A portion before we have the Senate panelists join us. I will yield 3 minutes to myself to begin the Q&A portion. Look, I wish that I saw more political courage demonstrated on a lot of issues. Our country faces a number of challenges. I just happen to think this is one that will undo the republic and will jeopardize every aspect of what we may disagree about in terms of the constitutional core mission of the federal government, but we can be sure that a sovereign debt crisis will undermine all of it. And I think about the defense side. You're a defense appropriator, Mr. Case. We talk about crowding out investment in the private sector, which affects the economy, exacerbates the current situation with inflation and interest rates. But we're also crowding out important investment of taxpayer dollars in the number one job and responsibility of a government, which is to provide for the common defense or the safety and security of the American people. Tell me if you see that happening right now in terms of the impotence and the impetus, not impotence, the impetus and urgency to act and act quickly.
Well, I think there's no doubt if you take a look at the trends that interest is crowding out all of our discretionary programs. Interest is certainly crowding out defense. My colleague on that subcommittee and I both see that every single day, and it's certainly happening on the non-defense side. So when we have these when we have these budget fights over how much to put into defense and non-defense, we're clearly dealing with a reduced total pie that is going to non-interest payments on our national debt. That's unavoidable by any stretch of the imagination. But I would go back to my colleague, Mr. Womack's comment, and that is, that's just part of the problem. We have to deal with Social Security and Medicare in this context, not only because we have to save those programs from insolvency and from forced automatic reductions, but because of Mr. Boyle's comments are correct, because we are funding Social Security and Medicare shortfalls out of that portion that would otherwise be allocated to discretionary funding. So we're having a double whammy. So we have to take this across the entire spectrum.
I think that's well said. And I don't know of a time where Social Security's solvency and sustainability has been addressed ever unilaterally by one party. I don't know if it's ever happened. I don't believe it has, ever. So we can talk about all these grand proposals we have on both sides, but it's just still talk, and it's cheap. And cheap talk is not going to give peace of mind to the seniors, to my parents, who are both on Social Security. So Scott Peters, Bill Huizenga, the whole panel, just one thing across the board. If we could do one thing differently than we did with Simpson-Bowles and other commissions, Greenspan and others, that would help position us for the best probability of success. Just name one thing. We'll go through the board, and then I'll delegate the next set of questions to my member.
To me, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
one of the most significant elements of this is having a proposal that's not amendable and is forced to have a vote in both the House and in the Senate.
Thank you. Scott.
I agree, with a recognition that, that was 20 years before the programs go insolvent. Now we're 10 years before. Pretty soon we're going to get pretty close to insolvency, and we're not going to be able to do anything about it. So with a sense of urgency.
Chairman.
Up or down vote?
Mr. Case.
I agree with Mr. Womack.
Mr. McGovern.
I think we should bring legislation like Mr. Boyle's bill or Mr. Larson's bill, or my friends have bills to cut Social Security, bring them to the floor, let's have the debate and figure this out. We ought to do our job.
In addition to the up or down vote, what would you add to a commission so that it can work?
Yeah, I've already mentioned, I think it's very important to have members on the commission with skin in the game. And that would mean perhaps leaders of the committees through which the legislation will ultimately go. And then secondly, I think we have to look at the commission as part of the big job. Part of the commission is a public relations effort, building support for the efforts of the commission with the American people. I think it's really important.
Thank you. Thank you all for the indulgence. I'd like to yield 3 minutes to my friend who has been a leader on this issue as well, Mr. Jimmy Panetta from California.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to you and the ranking member for not just holding this hearing, but for the way you conduct this committee and your focus on issues that are very important, not just to us in this Congress, but to the future of this nation. So thank you very much. And I am pleased that once again, we're focusing on addressing our debt and deficits. While last hearing, we had looked at the successes and challenges of past fiscal commissions, it's good that we're moving forward by actually talking and looking at specific pieces of legislation, thanks to our witnesses. I admit, as a steering member of the Bipartisan Fiscal Forum, I am proud to be original co-sponsor of one of the bills we're discussing, the Fiscal Commission Act, that was introduced by our two of our witnesses, Reps. Peters and Huizenga. This is a bipartisan bill that will create a fiscal commission involving bipartisan members of Congress and outside experts who will propose a set of policies to put us on a fiscally responsible path. These recommendations will then get an up or down vote in both chambers. Now, this hearing also gives us an opportunity to compare and contrast fiscal commission bills, including those by Reps. Case and Womack and Senators Manchin and Romney. Now, while a commission will still require hard choices, I think we've heard that and we understand that, it will facilitate the conversations that are necessary to discuss our fiscal issues and solutions in a fair and honest manner. And Mr. Chairman, you may say impotence, I say Viagra. That's what this will be in regards to looking at Congress, in regards to looking at our budget process. So if we can empower a successful commission through one of the legislative proposals today, we may be able to set ourselves up for a more fiscally disciplined and economically stable future. Now, Mr. Peters, my colleague from California and good friend, of course, there's been a lot of focus on general revenues and annual spending, but we're facing a real cliff. I think we know that, we've heard that when it comes to Social Security and Medicare in the near future. And I appreciate Mr. McGovern's comments. I think all of us do. And looking at the demographics, which were not, basically the issues have to depend on demographics, which we're not going to control. I think everyone here wants to ensure that retirees are held harmless when it comes to Social Security and Medicare benefits. But there are risks to doing nothing. There are risks to doing nothing. So Scott, will we protect our seniors from benefit cuts if we do nothing to address Social Security and Medicare shortfalls?
No, we will not. And that's the frustrating thing for me about being a Democrat trying to save Social Security and Medicare, is that many people on our side of the aisle say, don't touch it. Social Security is in the hospital bed with a weak heartbeat. We know it's dead in 10 years. It's going to be, we're talking about 23% across the board cuts if we do nothing. So those of us who want to save Social Security, we need to act now, because as people have made the point, the longer we wait, the more expensive, the more difficult those choices will be, and the more likely cuts will be. So that's why I think it's really imperative for us to get on this right now. People want to make it a political issue. That has been successful. But now we're coming up on the precipice of the actual cuts to seniors that are going to take effect across the board. We have to act if we want to save these programs, and if we don't, we will lose them.
Thank you, and thanks to all the witnesses. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Panetta. Now yield 3 minutes